Any character, no matter how good they are, can have flaws. It's no surprise that if your character has too many flaws, those things can start to add up. And if past Smash Bros games or even current games have taught us anything at all, it's that too many flaws add up. If you don't have the positives in order to balance that, it can lead to you easily becoming an awful character. Look at characters like Melee Bowser. If you ever make a character and you want to learn a clear tutorial on how not to balance them, look no further than Melee Bowser. Melee Bowser is a big boy. He's one of the largest playable characters in the game. Some would call him an obvious heavyweight character. I mean, no duh, he's thick. Normally, heavyweight characters, even in Smash and outside of Smash, usually end up being bad characters because their archetype sort of works against them. Whether it's their moves being too slow, laggy, they get camped by projectiles non-stop because of their large character models. And large character models can make you a training bag to get comboed. And if your character doesn't have enough ways to offset the flaws, you can easily spiral into being a low tier, which is why Melee Bowser just swims in all the faults. This is back when Smash in general didn't know how to significantly balance heavyweight characters. Bowser in Melee lacks any super armor or armor whatsoever, so it's pretty normal for heavyweight characters to have armor in fighting games because that's how you balance out them being larger and being combo food. In fact, if you don't believe me, they would literally give these things to Bowser in future Smash games in order to balance him out. What armor is supposed to do is allow Bowser to be able to counterattack characters mid-combo, make Bowser stand more of a chance. So because of this huge flaw, it's going to make Bowser the easiest legal character to combo in the game. What's even funnier though is his jump squat being the worst jump squat in the game. That's right, he's the only character in Melee that has a worse jump squat than the non-playable characters, which is just awful, being an 8-frame jump squat. To put that in perspective, how bad that is, that means anytime Bowser jumps off the ground, it's going to be slower than every character in the game. It's that bad. And you combine that with his lack of armor, he's just going to get stuffed by approaches, and he's going to struggle to really even get off the ground. The best jump squats in the game are 3-frame jump squats, which plenty of viable characters share. Even Fox, who, surprise, surprise, the best character in Melee, who would have thought? Even Giga Bowser, Bowser's alternate boss version of the character that you only face in story mode, who is larger than Bowser, has a frame 6 jump squat. The reason why this is such a bad flaw to have is it literally makes you hard to approach. And once you get off the ground or recover or edge guard whatsoever, Bowser's not gonna be able to do these things that well compared to other characters. And he's gonna be more reliant on his grounded tools, which really aren't that good either. In Smash Ultimate, they would actually normalize the whole cast jump squat to 3 frames, which was actually a great change. It finally meant characters were not going to be held down by this flaw anymore, because Melee's Bowser's faults are he's mostly reliant on his niche varied options, whether it's his get-up attack at ledge, which is actually kind of good until he gets above 100% and then he just loses this ability, or his up B out of shield, which comes out surprisingly quick, where it's active at frame 5 and it actually is a decent tool because it covers space, and it's really quick. Now, this isn't Smash 4 where the heavies were given grappler-esque mechanics. Bowser's grabs are awful in Melee. His dash grab literally makes him fall over, and it makes him easy to punish. If you want something else to laugh about, his own down throw does 0% on some characters in the NTSC version of the game, which is kind of funny. Bowser is essentially reliant on a couple of options, as his strong grounded tools are normally the selling point of heavyweight characters. Bowser's are just really hard to hit, and they have crazy amounts of lag. In turn, Bowser is a character that is trying to be something that he's not. In Melee's fast-paced combo-centric game, Bowser just doesn't have a lot to offer. He was doomed to be a bottom-tier character because of his crazy laundry list of flaws, and to be honest, they didn't really figure out how to balance Bowser until later Smash games. In Brawl, he had pretty much all of the same issues, still having a frame 8 jump squat, and unlike characters like Snake, who had a frame 9 jump squat, but was kicked up to the gills, I mean literally there, Snake is caked up in Brawl, for real. I mean, it's up till it's caked up, but not talking about what you think I'm talking about. Or maybe I am. Bowser only gains armor when he transforms into Giga Bowser, and Final Smashes are banned, so that's never gonna happen for him. He still was a bottom tier character even in that game because they just didn't do that much to fix him despite him being slightly better than Melee Bowser. It wasn't until Smash 4 they finally made a non-low tier version of Bowser where after balance patches they gave Bowser a kill confirm that basically made him able to kill characters at the top blast zones with ease. This was a big thing in that game. And they even gave him armor, finally. If you want to learn anything from the early versions of Bowser, it's easy to see how much you can mess up a character. It shows how balancing a character the wrong way can just easily make them terrible. Here's another flaw that holds back a lot of characters, and it's grounded characters. Grounded characters are not always bad. Essentially what makes a grounded character the way they are is they're defined by their smash attacks or fast movement on stage. However, they have crippling weaknesses like bad aerials or a terrible recovery. There's some characters that do this archetype accurately, like Cloud, where Cloud had an absolutely terrible recovery. However, if he gains a full gauge of limit, he can actually use his mechanic to give him a situational yes, but a much better recovery. However, some of the failures of this archetype go all the way back to probably one of the first versions of this style of character, and that's Melee Roy. This version of Roy is leagues from where the character is in Smash Ultimate. The main inspiration for this character was to make a stronger, more grounded version of Marth. Sort of like an early version of Ike in a way, as Roy is slower than Marth, and he does have the more limited recovery because of his fast fall speed and worse up special and side special. The reason why this version of Roy is so bad is not only is his recovery a major nuisance to his character, but even his range is terrible for a sword character. He was infamously buggy. His moves like his dash attack would do this. His aerials were so weak they were just hard to hit and they didn't really meld well with his moveset. His hitboxes on his aerials compared to Marth too just showed that Marth was just a much better character. You can tell that Marth was supposed to be the character that was more rewarding when you spaced his moves correctly with his tipper hitboxes. However, here's Roy. Compared to Marth, he doesn't have a tipper hitbox anywhere on his sword. It shows that he's not really rewarding compared to Marth, so not only does Marth outrange Roy, having a better recovery than him, also having a more rewarding moveset than him. Yes, Roy has an edge over Marth in some niche areas like his down tilt or his up B killing Puff on Yoshi's Story, but these things don't really save him. Honestly, if you ask me, Roy needed more time in the oven. Pun intended, because he's got fire and he's okay. To be real, Roy did get figured out in later Smash games, but he's just an example in the early days of a character that just was cursed with a bad recovery and it held him back. Here's another grounded character that has been more cursed with his well-known bad recovery, and that's obviously Little Mac. Little Mac is the grounded fighter archetype on steroids because obviously he has amazing frame data on stage. We've all seen where this can go. We all know when a Smash character has terrible recovery, it can definitely be a knife in the back. They decided to double down on the extremes of the character even more than they did with, let's say, Melee Roy. That means Little Mac's smash attacks, tilts, and grabs are all quite good. However, his aerials and recovery options are definitely not good at all. He has a couple of redeeming qualities like his comeback mechanic, having one of the fastest nairs in the game, which is kind of funny because Little Mac has really terrible aerials, but his nair is actually somewhat usable, I guess. It's kind of funny. But these things don't really offset his terrible amounts of flaws. The reason why bad recovery options is so bad is it makes you easy to edgeguard off stage, which is one of the worst flaws to have. A bad recovery can easily make you a low tier no matter how good your positives are on stage. And if you want to take anything from these characters, they can be played in the right hands for sure. And there is potential to them because they're really strong on stage. However, having the flaws really holds them back. In Roy's case, he would be buffed in the future, having a more normalized recovery and even more positives on stage with his better neutral options in combo game. And they finally buffed his aerials too, which was nice. However, Lil Mac has been a low-tier character for multiple games in a row. Showing his problems have held him down. This one is pretty easy to understand. One of the biggest flaws a character could have is over-nerfing them. Now, a lot of times nerfing is 100% intentional and expected. Meta Knight was the best character in Brawl. Well, they toned him down and he was still good in future Smash games, but they normalized his character a little bit. Even Bayonetta, who is probably the most controversial character in the whole series, when she dropped near the end of Smash 4's life cycle, she totally ran that period of time, but she would be normalized in Smash Ultimate. You wanna know what's funny though? What if they nerfed a mediocre character and they just kept them bad for multiple games in a row? Brawl Ganondorf. He's a nerfed version of Melee Ganondorf, and one thing I kind of find funny about Ganondorf is that he's had a downward spiral ever since his release in Melee, where they would even nerf the character in the PAL version of the game, where they would significantly tone down his KO power and damage. This version of Ganondorf is definitely beefy. He could KO you center stage with his down air, which many characters can't even do that. He was still a flawed mid-tier character. Well, in Brawl, they basically stripped the character back and entirely just took away a lot of his strong aspects that he was known for in Melee. Fun fact, the nerfs that he received in Brawl carried over to many other Smash games. His frame data was made even slower, and he would actually become one of the slowest characters in all of Brawl. Unlike other heavyweights who might stand a chance in Brawl's engine, some of them have deceptively fast moves like DDD or Snake. Ganon doesn't really have these things going for him. He has the same old down air, which I brought up earlier was one of his strongest tools. His recovery is still a joke, and this is Brawl. A lot of characters have either really good recoveries or they have straight up dog water recoveries. He has one of the lowest double jumps in the game for some reason. His up special gets beat by Final Destination. Welcome to the party, Grandpa Dorf. If you want to learn something from Brawl Ganondorf, he was a limited character that they made even more flawed by digging deeper into what the character was bad at. I'll at least give them credit. They tried to buff Ganondorf, like giving him a sword in Smash Ultimate on his smash attacks, and they also tried making him faster, but even these things didn't really save him from being the worst character again in Smash Ultimate. So yeah, next character. Our final point here is talking about characters that aren't fully defined. This is an easy way to make a character bad in Smash. Being a jack of all trades, but lacking full definition in your moveset easily keeps you from standing out from the pack. Think of characters like Bowser Jr. in Smash 4 or even Melee Mario. Check out the Mario video I did if you want to see why. The bad characters don't have significant definition in any area. These characters tend to be bad because they don't really have a lot of good things going for them. They're rather mediocre. The best characters in most Smash games are actually good in most areas, while these characters just are kind of mid. They're mid-tier. Like Bowser Jr. having plenty of projectiles, KO power on paper, but they actually turned out to be pretty awful projectiles, and even if he has multiple of them, it still doesn't help him because they're kind of bad. Also, when the DLC period came around, power creep became a big thing, and people just realized Bowser Jr. didn't really have that good KO power, actually. Piranha Plant technically was the first DLC character for Smash Ultimate. Now, I know what some people are going to say, don't mess with the Plant gang. I agree. Plant isn't a terrible character in Smash Ultimate. Actually, their roster is incredibly close-knit. People have shown to do work with the character. However, he's in the D+ tier for a reason. He's a strange character, he's a heavyweight, which is actually kind of interesting because he's more of a defensive character instead of a character being more reliant on their offensive capabilities. He has a strong level of endurance per stock, he can live for a long time. Fun fact, in early development, they actually experimented with giving him 3 jumps, which honestly would have been crazy because just imagine him living for such a long time and being a defensive beast. He would have lived forever if he had 3 jumps. Obviously, that never happened, but it would have been interesting for sure. Piranha Plant's moveset is really situational. Some of his aerials are pretty lackluster and don't have a lot of power to them, and they have a lot of end lag. Platooey is actually one of the strongest projectiles in the game, but come here. This move is super hard to hit. Side Special is great at racking up damage, and it's good for stage control as sitting in this move is pretty dangerous. However, there's plenty of ways to shut down these tools, as Piranha Plant's best moves are beaten by certain characters really hard, especially if they have a reflector. Down special has a high amount of startup, and it's hard to consistently control, and you can even hit Piranha Plant while he's doing the move. Ouch. This is Plant's only move that actually has armor on it. If you want my honest content opinion, I think a defensive character should have had more armor in their moveset, and they should have delved deeper into that part of their archetype. That's just my 2 cents on it. Maybe giving him more armor might have improved him a little bit. Now, it's really sad that Plant is the lowest tier DLC fighter, but in retrospect, it kind of makes sense. The best DLC fighters in Smash have comeback mechanics, their own unique attributes that make them stand out in their own lane, most of them having really defined movesets, while Plant just feels like a mediocre character compared to the rest of them. So no disrespect to the Plant mains, I can't hide my bias. I really wanted Geno in Smash instead of Plant, but a man can dream. It's unfortunate that Piranha Plant is a low tier character, but it is what it is. The next character is definitely another plant-based character, I guess. Brawl Ivysaur is known for having the worst mechanic ever introduced in a Smash game. And no, this isn't an overreaction. This is a really bad mechanic. And no, I'm not talking about the stamina mechanic, but we'll get there in a second. Now, if you remember in Pokemon, water beats fire, fire beats grass, grass beats water. Well, they tried including this mechanic in Smash, so type effectiveness was actually included in Brawl. However, Ivysaur got the short end of the stick, as fire type attacks were super common. A majority of characters in the cast had them, and because of this, Ivysaur was weak to fire type attacks. So a lot of interactions would lead to Ivysaur dying at extremely early percents. Here's Snake beating Ivysaur at 5% with his forward smash. Luigi's up special beating Ivysaur at 40%. Because Ivysaur is a middleweight, he was just getting destroyed at really low percents. Out of all 3 of Pokemon Trainer's Pokemon, Ivysaur was clearly the weakest because of this. And in Brawl, the stamina mechanic was introduced to try to force players to use different Pokemon throughout a match. If you left a Pokemon out on the field too long, they would become tired and their moves would become weaker. During a match, their initial stamina mechanic starts at 100 and then it drops by half a point every second. And you will start to notice the changes as their animations will start to change. And as this happens when their points get below 40. And then the Pokemon's damage and knockback will begin to decrease significantly. This in turn will make them hard to really do anything and even get kills. Fun fact, these silly little mechanics aren't even a part of the Subspace Emissary. Yes, it's not a part of the single player mode, but it is part of the regular gameplay in the game, which is kind of weird. These terrible mechanics would be removed from Pokemon Trainer when the character returned in Smash Ultimate. Plenty of Ivysaur's attacks deal minimal amounts of damage and knockback, even without stamina. Some of their hitboxes were so tiny, it would be risky to try to confirm with them. And if you are learning anything from this video, don't duct tape a bunch of flaws for no reason to a character who is already mediocre. Because of these flaws blended together, it made Ivysaur into one of the worst characters in all of Brawl. Some people's opinion, Ivysaur in Brawl is actually one of the worst characters ever. Thank you guys for watching the video. My album, Sapphire, is available to stream on Spotify. Check it out. Also, there's a Patreon down below if you guys want to get early content. Thank you guys for watching the video. Seriously, appreciate it. Hopefully you guys are having a great day. Thank you for being here. Peace. Have a good one.